So welcome. We are already in the third week. Goes fast, I think. It's almost September. Today, what we're gonna do is see something about the news. I do that very often, not very long, just 5 minutes. Then we make a pizarra about the characteristics of life, because as you can see behind me, it's about the characteristics of life today. So we're going to see all of that. We're going to see the Canvas content, and pay attention because it's not a difficult lesson today, but tomorrow we will already do a quiz about this. So it's only 5 small questions you will get tomorrow, and it's just about the characteristics of life and to see if you understand this. So normally, if you pay well attention today, there is not that much to study about this. Okay. Dajong, don't worry if I didn't mention you, because if I see you, I don't put you falta. I don't put you in absence. Okay. So
I'm here.
Close the door quickly, because otherwise. Because in the morning, my kids already hijack the class a little bit. They come in without any warning, and all of a sudden they're there. What was in the news today and yesterday? What we saw in the news is something that it's a bit worry. It can worry us a little bit. So you can see here that in Hong Kong, they found a first case of coronavirus reinfection. That means it's a person that got coronavirus. This person got better, and then 2 or 3 months later, this person got the virus again for a second time. Okay. Then not much later, we got some news about Netherlands and Belgium that the scientists also discovered that people could get reinfected with coronavirus. Okay. Where is the Netherlands? Netherlands is just above Belgium. Here, you all know by now I'm from Belgium. Belgium has the north part here, speaking Flemish, Dutch. It's a dialect of Dutch. And here, the bigger southern part speaks French. The Netherlands is just above that. It's slightly bigger than Belgium. It's a beautiful country. I love the Netherlands a lot because my father is from the Netherlands. So in fact, I'm half Dutch. My father is here from the city of Eindhoven. And the Netherlands, it's very kind and interesting people, but the country has one big problem, and it's that about 60–70% of the country is below sea level, or just 1 or 2 meters above sea level. So it's one of the flattest and lowest countries in the world, which will generate some problems for the future, because of course with the global sea temperatures and global warming, it's flooding. You know, the sea level is rising. Did you know, by the way, that the main reason of sea level rise at this moment is not because of the ice of Greenland that is filling the oceans. It's because of thermal expansion. You know that when something is hot, it takes more volume. And it's believed that the seas are hotter, and now the sea level rise that we see today, it's also, of course, due to melting of ice, but mainly the biggest contributing factor at this point is thermal expansion. But this will change in the future, of course, and then countries like the Netherlands, they will have a country, also Bangladesh and some other ones. So a little word about Hong Kong. Where is Hong Kong? It's a city in China. Has been independent or autonomous for a very long time. It was under control of the British Empire, and they had special regulations for Hong Kong. So it has never been communistic like mainland China. It has always been a capitalistic peninsula. And that's why there are so many problems today in Hong Kong, because the UK gave Hong Kong back to China. No, it gave it independence. And the idea is, what China wants to do now is they want to take Hong Kong back and make it part of China. But Hong Kong people, they have been independent for such a long time that they don't really like it. And that's what you have seen in the news about these Hong Kong issues, you know. So China is trying to put a lot of influence on Hong Kong I also don't know if you know, Hong Kong is one of the most expensive cities to live. If you want to have an expensive apartment, look in Hong Kong. You're definitely going to find really expensive things there. So in these two places, we have found so far, and there will be other cases. Scientists has found that people can get reinfected with coronavirus. Okay, I give some geography lessons aside, but why is this a problem, students? Why is this bad news?
Because that just means that the pandemic is just going to keep reoccurring if they don't find a vaccine or something that can solve it. Because if more cases start popping up, then it's going to be like the first time, hard to control. And unless there's a vaccine or something to stop and treat it, it's just going to keep growing.
Your answer is very complete. However, be careful with what you say about the vaccine, because this is my main comment here. Look, what we have is that the coronavirus can reinfect people, okay? This can be due to two reasons, okay? Or the problem is in the virus, or the problem is in the human. So if the problem is in the human, it means that our immune system could not develop a strong enough immune response that makes us immune for a prolonged period of time, okay? Because otherwise, if we would have immunity, we would not be reinfected. So it could be a host issue. Can also be a virus issue, okay? The virus is mutating so fast that people get infected again, and that our immune system is not recognizing the new mutated virus, okay? It doesn't really matter what the explanation is. Maybe it's both, but this implies that the 150 or so vaccines that are in development, are they really going to work, you know? I mean, vaccine is doing exactly that. It's trying to generate immune response in humans. And we see now that people can get reinfected after 2 to 4 months. So it means that the immune response in humans is very short. So we have to see if they come up with a vaccine, if it's actually going to work. Maybe it will work, but maybe it's only going to work for 1 or 2 months, and then or 4 months, or even let's say 8 months. It's not good enough, you know. You cannot start vaccinating the whole world population twice a year for coronavirus. It's going to be complicated. Moreover, if the virus is mutating, then it could mean that the vaccine has no use, that you have to have a whole series of vaccinations in order to have all different kinds of strains of coronavirus. So this, like here is mentioned, Mark van Ranst is the virologist of the Belgian university where I studied. He also is giving a lot of advice to our government, and he says it's really not good news. And I completely agree. This is very worrisome, because the only thing we can think of then is to find a good remedy, a good cure, you know. So guys, I don't have all the answers. I'm just putting in front of you this news and what it means, you know, and you think a little bit about it. I also don't know if the vaccines are going to work or not. It doesn't really look that well. And it makes it only more complicated to eradicate the virus, okay? So it's not to generate panic. I just try to teach you, you know, I just try to give you information and to see what we can get out of this, you know. There is one little bit of good news in it, that the people that got reinfected, they had very little symptoms. So I think that's definitely good news, because it means that our body has learned somehow to fight it a little bit better. So that could be good news, okay? That means possibly there is some kind of immune response, but I think we have to wait until there is more information and there is more research done to see what this exactly means. But I do think it's important to mention this, okay? Somebody wants to comment something about this?
I think it's kind of concerning, because if the body can't, like if the human body can't create the right antibodies to combat the coronavirus, then like you said, a vaccine probably won't work. And in the article, it said that the man in Hong Kong came back from a trip from Spain with a different strain of coronavirus, which means that we don't know where each strain of coronavirus is affecting, like which countries have which one. And so I don't think the vaccines people are making in Russia will work in Argentina, and the ones they're making and I don't know where are going to work in another place because we don't really know that much.
Very nice, Isabella. Thank you. What you tell me, it shows me that you have a profound understanding of how this is working already, and it shows, it proves to me that you have a lot of interest in this matter. So a very nice comment. Okay, so viruses as well, to skip to the actual content of today. Viruses, are they alive or not alive? That's also what we're going to see a little bit today, because they're a little bit floating in between. And today we're going to talk about what are the characteristics of life. And to do that, I want to start the Pizarra. And I would like you to write down in this Pizarra what you think that are the characteristics of life, okay? So the question is, let me write the questions. And then just write what you think.
But life, like in general, or
yeah,
like or how?
Life in general, all kinds of life, bacterial life, plant life, human life, animal life, all, what are those characteristics? Basically, to say it with other words, what makes life life, or what makes life alive? Very good, Kyle. Metabolism is very good. Metabolism is basically taking energy from the environment and convert it with chemical processes into something we can use in order to maintain our cells healthy, in order to grow, in order to reproduce. That's very good. Cells, indeed. Characteristic of life is that basically all life is made out of cells, if not all life. Virus, we cannot really call it a cell. It's more like a cell part, let's say. Life reproduce, life evolves. Homeostasis, very good word. Homeostasis is the balance we keep with the environment around us. I will go more in detail in a moment. Growth as well, reproduction as well. It's really good. You're a very strong group. There is already a lot of them, a lot of things there. Okay, well done. So let's go to the content. But here is the content. Again, before we start, I would like you to see a small TikTok. I mentioned you in the lesson before that I think it's important that you start making your notes, okay? At this point, we haven't seen so much. We have seen the characteristics of, the characteristics of life today, what is science, the scientific method. But in this TikTok, I quickly show you, I think it's important you make your own notes, and that's basically the message of this TikTok. Still loading. Can you see it? Call it quits. Call it destiny. Bit slow today. Just because it won't come easily. Don't you tell me that it wasn't meant to be. Call it quits, call it destiny. Just because it won't come easily. Don't you tell me that it wasn't meant to be. So that's basically I wanted you to see. They refer to certain web page which is called BioNinja. Could be helpful, but basically it's the notes that is important. You know, you see in the end that she has a nice booklet with her notes made. I would recommend you to do the same, because you save a lot of time when you come to the first partial and the last partial, because if you have to scroll all over Canvas, it's not that easy to study. So really, when you study, make those notes, write the most important things, and you'll be fine. Okay, let's go into detail. Organization and complexity. Okay, that's a very beautiful thing, because organization and complexity, it's something that is very, very typical of life. You can see that everywhere in life. Life has complexity, it's organized. I show you some pictures here. Look at this jellyfish, at the girl, the spider web. What do you notice in all of these four pictures?
There is patterns.
Very good, patterns. What else?
They have a lot of details.
Details.
Or like circles.
Circles, symmetry also.
Colors.
Whenever you open a rock in the mountains and all of a sudden you see symmetry and you see patterns and you see complexity, you can be sure it's a fossil that would have been an animal, a plant, or whatever. This is typical of life. If things are not alive, usually you see chaos and things that are disorganized. Life has something in common with everything. The jellyfish, the spider web, the little girl, the flower. It's all about symmetry, patterns, and complexity. That's a very beautiful example about life. Look at yourself, how complex we are. Look at the animal, look at the insect. Everything is so organized and so beautifully done, okay? It's complex. Metabolism, okay? Metabolism is taking things from the environment, okay? Can be autotroph, heterotroph. You can use sunlight or you can use food. You take things out of the environment in order to grow, repair, or conservation of living things, reproduction, you see? We need energy, basically, okay? So what we take out of the environment, we transform it into energy so we can get that complexity. We can grow, we can reproduce. Without energy and metabolism, we cannot transform in the complex things we are. Any life, bacterial life, plant life, human life, animal life, okay? Homeostasis, a very important word, and make sure you never forget. It's a thing that certain students, they have difficulties with, but homeostasis is the balance. It's the equilibrium life has with the environment, okay? Everything is in balance. When things are out of balance, of course, then you get disturbances. To give an example, how are you in balance with the environment? Well, you're healthy at this moment. It means that your body is fighting all the bacteria and viruses you have all over your body, and we all have millions and millions of them. And this is homeostasis, you know, we keep in balance. Our body is fighting those bacteria and viruses at this very moment, and that's why we are not sick at this moment. From the moment things are getting out of balance and the bacteria are winning or the viruses are winning, they win. Homeostasis is disturbed, the balance is broken, and we get sick and eventually die. Okay, that's with everything in life. Okay, I think we can see the whole planet as homeostasis. The forest, the sea, the mountains, the animals, the microbes, the bacteria, the humans, everything should be perfectly in balance in order to continue to be sustainable. Of course, humans take everything out of balance, and then it's when you see species loss and everything, you know? So that's basically what homeostasis is. Growth, all animals grow, all life grows, okay? It starts with one cell and then it becomes a lot of cells. It's little and then it becomes larger. So it's a very typical characteristics. Reproduction as well, okay? All life reproduces. This can be sexual and asexual, okay? So we reproduce sexual, but there is plants and bacteria that can reproduce asexual, okay? Also virus is asexual. Reaction to stimuli. So for instance, when a flower turns to the sun or a tree grows to the window or to the sunlight, this is all reaction to stimuli. If you have an ant running to honey, it's reaction to stimuli. It's everything that happens, life reacts to the environment, okay? That's the reaction to stimuli. And evolution, that's the last one. So we know now, and we're gonna see that life evolves, okay? We have evidence of this, and evolve evolving of life is a consequence of the changing environment. We have evidence of life that is evolving, so it's not a theory, but we're going to see later what those evidences are. There is an important one missing here, guys. It's difficult to, I'm going to show you a video. It's really difficult to give it numbers, but there is one more characteristic that is not mentioned in Canvas here, and that is also true for all life. Think about very small things. What would that be?
Cells.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, life is made of cells. I think that's a good one. And together with that goes what? What's in the middle of the cell? Not in the middle, but in the center of the cell.
The DNA.
Exactly. All life has DNA or RNA, which is this. It's not the same, but we will learn that later. DNA or RNA is both the genetic code of life. Okay. Let's watch a small video about what is life. We're going to see two videos today. I'm going to start with the first one. Okay. This is a very nice video that explains us a little bit what the characteristics of life are.
Have you ever seen those toys that you can put in water for a few days and then they increase in size? They always have this label on the package like, grows 1,000,000 times larger in water. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but they do grow impressively larger. I had one once. It was a pony. I had dreams for it to grow especially large, so to give it plenty of room, it spent several days in a bathtub. And while it did technically grow larger, the dreams I had imagined for it did not really come to be. The fact that it could increase in size sort of gave me some kind of thought in my mind that it just might be alive, because things that are alive do grow, right? Combine that with my overactive imagination, and it was difficult for me to come back to reality that this toy pony may increase in size, but it's not alive. When we talk about biological growth and development, this type of increase in size is not the same thing. And if we're going to truly explore biology, the study of life, it makes it essential that we understand characteristics of things that are alive. Life is difficult to define, but the characteristics of living things can be explored. We want to mention right here, before we get started, that what makes an organism alive still results in a lot of questioning by biologists. Hey, remember, there are many organisms undiscovered on our own planet, and new information revealed in biological sciences all the time. So this is our disclaimer that this information can change and is still debated. Kind of like what we mentioned in our classification video. This is why we are not going to give a certain numerical value for how many characteristics of life there are, because we do not want to imply that they are in a specific order, or that what we are listing cannot be expanded upon, or that this can't include exceptions that we may not mention. Also, the characteristics we talk about here can certainly be titled differently. See, we're not trying to talk about a list that one would memorize here. Our goal is actually to get you thinking about what it means for an organism to be alive, and characteristics of life that can be explored when trying to study living things. Okay, so let's get started with some characteristics. Organization. We can look at the cell theory here and see that, according to this theory, living organisms are made of cells. Some organisms are unicellular, so they can be made up of just one cell. But more complex organisms, like this pony here, are multicellular and therefore can be made up of many cells, which can be arranged into tissues. The tissues can make up organs. The organs can be part of an organ system. These are biological levels of organization. As for our bathtub-grown pony, no cells. Homeostasis. Maintaining a regulated balance is so important for many biological processes to even happen. For example, enzymes typically need a certain pH range to even work correctly. Maintaining homeostasis can mean maintaining a certain temperature and a certain percentage of water concentration. Ponies and your human body have all kinds of feedback systems in place to maintain homeostasis. But even a single-celled organism, like an amoeba, relies on its cell membrane to maintain homeostasis internally. Living organisms have regulation of homeostasis, which is not going on here in bathtub-grown pony. Metabolism. If you're alive, you need to have some way to capture energy and use energy for processes, including some processes that keep homeostasis, like mentioned previously. Chemical reactions happening in living organisms are part of metabolism. So just to give some examples of reactions that are part of metabolism in living organisms, plants are autotrophs that can capture light energy to make glucose in a process known as photosynthesis. Animals are heterotrophs that typically need to eat something and then digest it in order to obtain glucose. Both of these example organisms break down glucose in cellular respiration to make ATP energy. Metabolism is happening in this pony, but not in bathtub pony. Reproduction. This can be very simple, like unicellular bacteria, which can copy DNA and split into two, and now you have two bacteria. Or it can be more complex, like this living pony, which involves sperm and egg cells uniting to make a fertilized egg known as a zygote, which will eventually develop into a baby pony. No reproduction for this bathtub-grown pony. Growth and development. Living organisms have genetic material to code for development and growth. A baby pony will develop and grow up into a grown-up pony because its genetic material contains the instructions for this development and growth. Bathtub-grown pony may increase in size due to water entering it, but it's not growing and developing based on genetic instructions. Response to stimuli. Responding to stimuli is often considered a characteristic of life. There can be internal and external stimuli. If this pony feels the need to eat, this can be due to coordination of many body systems internally alerting the pony that it is hungry. If this pony senses danger, this external stimulus may cause it to flee. Not so for a bathtub pony. But you know, a response to a stimulus might not be obvious. I used to have a lot of cacti when I was a kid. And while I wouldn't call them especially exciting when I was a kid, I did notice that if I left them in a windowsill and didn't rotate them, they would bend, at least over a period of a few weeks. That's amazing because they are responding to light. Plants responding to light is a response to a stimulus. Evolution. A working definition of life, summarized by Dr. Gerald Joyce as part of a panel of exobiologists, describes life as, quote, a self-sustaining system capable of Darwinian evolution, end quote. Fascinating quote. Many scientists view the process of evolution as a characteristic of life, although this would occur over a period of time. The gene frequencies in a population of living organisms can change over time due to mechanisms, such as natural selection. Some genes can code for certain traits that result in higher reproductive fitness, while some genes may code for traits that lower reproductive fitness, and therefore may be selected against. Over time, these can result in adaptations. Because the bathtub pony cannot even reproduce in the first place, you won't see this. Characteristics of life are definitely intriguing to explore. Remember that these are characteristics that can be adjusted or potentially have exceptions. Some things are very hard to classify. Take viruses. In our virus video, we talk about how viruses are considered by the majority of scientists to not be living. Viruses with their genetic material can reproduce, although they need a host to reproduce. They can evolve, but overall they seem to lack a lot of the other characteristics of life and aren't typically classified as living. It's also interesting to think about the potential of extraterrestrial life, that is, life that is not on Earth. Would it still have these characteristics of life that we have discussed? Sometimes as science we find ourselves with even more questions. Well, that's it for the Amoeba Sisters, and we remind you to stay curious.
So that was the first video. It ended with asking if viruses are alive. There is an interesting article about it here, also in the link of Canvas. And in the video, they say that scientists, how many scientists consider it not to be alive? Well, it's really difficult to say, because it has certain characteristics of life and others it doesn't. The main difference is that it doesn't have a cell. It's basically just a strand of DNA that is covered with some proteins, and this virus is able to reproduce itself only with the help of a host. Okay, so a virus in the environment, it could never be reproduce itself. But on the other hand, there is many other organisms in life that need other organisms in order to be alive. Organisms that live in a symbiosis, There is certain plants that need to be attached on a certain trunk of a tree, otherwise they don't they cannot live. So the necessity of having another organism in order to be alive, it's not unique of viruses. There is many organisms that have this. Okay, so I don't want to go into it. It's not really any point of going into the deep discussion if viruses are alive or not alive. I think it's important for you to know that what they actually are. Okay, they have DNA, they can have RNA. Depends on the kind of virus there is. So the COVID is a RNA virus. It's not a DNA virus, I believe. If you have HIV, this is a retrovirus. It's RNA that converts into human DNA, so it becomes part of yourself. But the point of the virus is that it's made of biological material, okay? It's something that reproduces itself, and we are aware now more than ever that how dangerous these things can be. If you think about other viruses like rabies, it's the most lethal virus on planet Earth. It has a mortality rate of more than 90%. Everybody, like almost everybody who gets infected with rabies dies, okay? Then you have Ebola virus, which is also a very deadly virus. It kills about 70%, depending on the strain, of the people that are infected with it. There's other Ebola viruses that are as low as 30-40% of mortality. The point being, viruses are very important in the natural world. We believe that they have played an important role in evolution and in immunity. And I really think we cannot neglect what they do to us, the danger. If you think about dengue virus, or yellow fever, there are so many viruses around. If we go back quickly to the coronavirus has more or less a mortality of 2 or 3%. Now, let's assume that a vaccination is not going to work. We never find a vaccination, and we never find a cure. And let's be very pessimistic. In that case, if 2 or 3% of the world population would die of coronavirus, we're talking about more than 200 million people, more or less, if we take 2 or 3%, until that this would cause the coronavirus. So the viruses have played an important role in keeping the homeostasis of the world. Okay, they keep things in balance because they kill off weaker organisms and they keep the stronger ones alive. So viruses are very interesting. For sure, we will come back to this in further subjects of the course, in different chapters. Okay, let's finish the content. I have to go back quickly. So let me share where we were. There we go. This we did. And this would bring us to the second video, Dead or Alive. It goes a little bit more in depth about what life really is, because if you die as a human, we will all die one day. A lot of our cells, they are still alive. So are we dead or alive? That's basically the thing that is discussed here, that it's really complex to define life because it really depends on the point of view, I mean, we are considered dead if there is no brain activity anymore or there is no proof of our consciousness. So We even call that brain that if somebody's in a hospital and is not responding anymore, only the heart is beating, then it's clinical death, the person. Okay, but it's not really dead because the cells are still alive. So it's always a little bit difficult, and that's why I want to show you this video as well.
Life is fundamentally different from dead stuff.
To define really how this all works, it's very complex. But you have to focus on the main characteristics of life that are
Or is it?
For all life. Okay, that's basically the idea we have, and you can see it in my background as well. What are the commonly accepted characteristics of life for all living things? And this video just shows that it's a little bit more complex than just naming 7 or 8 characteristics,
Life is fundamentally different from dead stuff. Or is it? Physicist Erwin Schrödinger defined life this way: living things avoid decay into disorder and equilibrium. What does this mean? Let's pretend that your download folder is the universe. It started orderly and got more and more chaotic over time. By investing energy, you can create order and clean it up. This is what living things do. But what is life? Every living thing on this planet is made of cells. Basically, a cell is a protein-based robot too small to feel or experience anything. It has the properties we just assigned to life. It has a wall that separates it from the surroundings, creating order. It regulates itself and maintains a constant state. It eats stuff to stay alive. It grows and develops. It reacts to the environment, and it's subject to evolution. And it makes more of itself. But of all the stuff that makes up a cell, no part is alive. Stuff reacts chemically with other stuff, forming reactions that start other reactions, which start other reactions. In a single cell every second, several million chemical reactions take place, forming a complex orchestra. A cell can build several thousand types of protein, some very simple, some complex micromachines. Imagine driving a car at 100 kilometers an hour while constantly rebuilding every single part of it with stuff you collect from the street. That is what cells do. But no part of the cell is alive. Everything is dead matter moved by the laws of the universe. So is life the aggregate of all these reaction processes that are taking place? Eventually, every living thing will die. The goal of the whole process is to prevent this by producing new entities. And by this, we mean DNA. Life is, in a way, just a lot of stuff that carries genetic information around. Every living thing is subject to evolution, and the DNA that develops the best living thing around it will stay in the game. So, is DNA life then? If you take DNA out of its hull, it certainly is a very complex molecule, but it can't do anything by itself. This is where viruses make everything more complicated. They are basically strings of RNA or DNA in a small hull and need cells to do something. We're not sure if they count as living or dead. And still, there are 225 million cubic meters of viruses on Earth. They don't seem to care what we think of them. There are even viruses that invade dead cells and reanimate them so they can be a host for them, which blurs the line even more. Or mitochondria. They are the power plants of most complex cells and were previously free living bacteria that entered a partnership with bigger cells. They still have their own DNA and can multiply on their own, but they are not alive anymore. They are dead. So they traded their own life for the survival of their DNA, which means living things can evolve into dead things as long as it's beneficial to their genetic code. So, maybe life is information that manages to ensure its continued existence. But what about AI, artificial intelligence? By our most common definitions, we are very close to creating artificial life in computers. It's just a question of time before the technology we build gets there. And this is not science fiction either. There are a lot of smart people actively working on this. You could already argue that computer viruses are alive. Okay, so what is life then? Things? Processes? DNA? Information? This got confusing very fast. One thing is for sure, the idea that life is fundamentally different from non-living things because they contain some non-physical element or are governed by different principles than inanimate objects turns out to be wrong. Before Charles Darwin, humans drew a line between themselves and the rest of living things. There was something magical about us that made us special. Once we had to accept we are, like every living being, a product of evolution, we drew a different line. But the more we learn about what computers can do and how life works, the closer we get to creating the first machine that fits our description of life, the more our image of ourselves is in danger again. And this will happen sooner or later. And here's another question for you. If everything in the universe is made of the same stuff, does this mean everything in the universe is dead, or that everything in the universe is alive? That it's just a question of complexity? Does this mean we can never die because we were never alive in the first place? Is life and death an irrelevant question, and we haven't noticed it yet? Is it possible we are much more part of the universe around us than we thought? Don't look at us. We don't have any answers for you, just questions for you to think about. After all, it's thinking about questions like this that makes us feel alive and gives us some comfort.
So that's interesting, isn't it? With this video, I want to finish the lesson of today. Another thing I think is a nice thought to finish with is, like they also say in the video, you know, I mean, there is loss in nature and life is happening all the time, everywhere. So basically, I think that life is a consequence of the laws of nature. We had to be here. Life has had to develop all kind of life because this is just what was meant to be. Possibly we don't have to find an explanation behind everything, that why do we live, what is our purpose. It's just a consequence of how things are. That's the explanation, I think. And that's a nice thought, I think, because if you hold on to that, it would mean that we all have a purpose here, you know. We all had to be here. We are all a consequence of what had to be, because that's how nature works. And it would be nice if we could all find this purpose for ourselves. And it can be very high purpose, or it can be just being here, you know. But anyway, I think it's beautiful that we're all here for a reason. We had to be here because the laws of nature dictated in that way. So that's it for today. If somebody has some questions about something or want to comment something, then you're free to go. And if not, I wish you a happy afternoon, and we see each other tomorrow. Don't forget to study, to review what the characteristics are, because tomorrow we will do a little quiz about it, okay? Only 5 small questions. It will be very practical questions. For instance, a plant turns to the sun because, yeah, is this a characteristic of what? And then you have to say it responds to stimuli, okay? Something like that, okay? Any doubts, comments? No? Okay. Then I hope you have a nice lunch, and we see each other tomorrow. Take care, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, teacher. Bye.